Hey everybody, Josh here. While editing the podcast here, we tried using two microphones and that caused some audio issues. So bear with us with this one episode. It might sound a little weird. Sorry about that. Welcome to a B-Roll Brothers podcast. This is ABC DVD, Two Brothers' alphabetical journey through our highly misreported DVD collection. I'm Josh.
I'm Noah.
And welcome to season 2 of ABC DVD.
Woo, we made it. There were people who said we couldn't do it. Half of them are in this room.
You know, I had doubts that you wanted to do this for as long as we have.
But we made it. Season 2. Back at A.
Hey, yep. And first time recording with two new microphones. Didn't have technical issues whatsoever.
No, right the first time.
Yep.
One take Bartlett.
That's what we are. But yeah, we are starting with a 1981 film, Absence of Malice, a film that kind of addresses the dangers of journalism, the Fourth Estate, yeah. And so it's directed by Sidney Pollack, who has done things like Tootsie, The Fugitive, and The Firm. Writer Kurt Ludtke, he's only had 3 credits, only 3 writing credits, and this is one of them. Mm-hmm. The other was Tour Out of Africa and Random Hearts. So
not unknown,
not unknown. I mean, just this. He just did a few, and then it's like, I'm done with it. I could see Hollywood not being fun to work in. It stars Paul Newman as Michael King Gallagher. He's IMDb chose these of The Hustler, Road to Perdition, and The Verdict. Mm-hmm. Personally, I would have either thrown The Sting or Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid in there, but that's just me.
He's prolific. It's a little hard.
It's Paul Newman. Yeah. He makes your sauces. He makes your movies.
Yep.
Yeah. Sally Field plays Megan Carter. She's known for Forrest Gump, Steel Magnolias, and Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey is the Bandit.
That's Smokey and the Bandit, too. And Bob Balaban. Bob Balaban plays Elliot Rosen. He's known for Gosford Park, A Mighty Wind. I know him from Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
He is one of those background actors where you're like, oh, that guy.
Yeah, he's in the 1980s. He was in a lot of things, and you would recognize him. Mm-hmm. I guess I should do the synopsis because we have
Run the presses.
Yeah, breaking news. When a prosecutor leaks to a Miami reporter that a liquor wholesaler is suspected in the murder of a union head, the man's life begins to unravel. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yep. I want to start out before we really dive into this movie of a thing that I bumped on was this is in Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
There are way too many jackets and sweaters being worn. I know it's December in Florida, but that means it's,
Well, it's before global warming.
Yeah, but it's a low of 76.
Well, they're wusses. They're used to 90s and 80s. Once you get down to 60s,
70s.
You get sweater. I mean, I lived in Burbank, California, and coming from Colorado, and before that, right before that, I was living in Canada, and I was walking around in a t-shirt, and everyone was in these giant parkas when it was 50 degrees out.
So it's like,
they're wusses.
This is my cold weather, feelings of, you guys, you don't need the jacket.
Exactly. But yeah, we open up with what I said, like the black mirror of a computer screen. Mm-hmm. Them writing out that a union leader has been killed.
Missing
or presumed dead. And there's an investigation. And then we get the montage of the presses.
I was like, this reminds me of one of those 1960s reels, like, welcome to the presses of tomorrow. Yeah. Run the computers.
Yes, it's on computers. And then you go also like, how the raised letters, and then how they use actual metal, drums. And it's like, it's you can see how Discovery's how it's made was so. It's like, I would like to see how papers are made. And then,
it's like especially for the age we're in now, there used to be things called newspapers.
Yes,
where they would put actual news on paper, and it was yesterday's news.
Yeah, yesterday's internet on today's paper. Yeah.
Yes, but it's like you get the running of the presses, and then you get that you get the Dade County Courthouse. Mm-hmm. You get what is essentially an FBI group watching the reels.
Yeah, this is the Department of Justice, so I'm guessing the FBI. Yeah. They're watching what I call the Zapruder film of funerals, where a head of a mafia-esque family is dead, and they're recording everyone and saying, "Oh, here's this person, and we get our first look at Paul Newman saying, "This is the son of that guy,"
right?
And that he punched
I mean, it's a little bit ahead of us, but in the same room you get the exposition briefing of like, okay, here's all the people, here's why we want to watch them. We think they're tied to this union guy's leader, and here's the person we want to put pressure on.
Yeah, I feel like this is like who's that famous union leader that no one's found the body of?
Oh, Hoffa?
Yeah, I feel like this is referencing Jimmy Hoffa.
It could be, yeah. I mean, it's very much in line with that.
Yeah.
Tangentially, we also get Sally Fields walking into the office and kind of, doing her reporter things like, what are they up to? And the secretary does do a good non-verbal acting of like covering up information, but then goes and like says like, oh yeah, they're all watching the secret film in the back. You should know about that.
So what secret film it is? Yeah, so she's just the crime reporter and just sniffing around the Department of Justice for a story.
Yeah, and and she definitely does the newsroom thing of like she confronts an FBI agent saying, hey, I heard you were watching the film, and he goes, wait, how do you know that?
Oh, the secretary.
Throws the secretary right under the bus and says, but don't fire her. It's like, well, yeah, of course she's going to get fired. She just leaked
terrible things. And yeah, she is using her known relationship with this FBI guy because she knows he likes her. She doesn't like him, but it's like, hey, you're a source of information. I'm going to use that to my advantage.
But yeah, but it's basically coming quickly that there is, Paul Newman's character is a person of interest, and, she goes back to the newsroom and runs the microfilm.
The Google of its day.
The Google, and says like, well, no, here's his father. He's obviously been a crime person. There's not a lot of information on Paul Newman.
Yeah, it's because it's all like, oh, it's all on the dad, but I want information on the son, and she asked for information on the son, and that's gotta suck.
Well, yeah, it's like no, I said I want this guy. It's like, okay, I'll go through all the microfilm.
Yeah.
But her following up with the FBI agent, and they, she invites him out to a restaurant with the snazziest of wait staff.
Oh, I know.
Three-piece suits and hats.
I mean, there was a guy in a pinstripe suit that lights her cigarette and kind of goes away, and it kind of reminded me of like Prince from Deep Purple or Little Sweet from those Diet Dr. Pepper commercials. Like, oh, I'll light your cigarette, man. Well, thanks, Little Sweet.
Just popping out of nowhere, making sure I'm taken care of. But the whole thing, just saying like she is just following this one lead. She's got the one thing, and she wants to figure it out.
Yeah, and she knows that she doesn't have enough, so she has to talk to the head of this task force, Rosen, and it's like, yeah, he never gives up information.
Well, yeah, they kind of said like he's a by the book and kind of a hard ass, but he allows her to come in, and you see him set up the room like, give her a minute, puts the this tantalizing file out there, and basically says like, I'm not going to talk to you, but I've got a meeting to go, so if you want to hang out at my office
and drink your coffee that I made you have.
Yeah, it's like, do that. And she, that big old carrot is hanging out there.
She takes the bait.
She takes the bait. Yeah. And she finds out, that there's, Paul Newman
is being under investigation.
And so you go back to the office with her meeting with her editor, and they're doing wordsmithing. It reminds me of definitely like when you're told to write a 500-word essay for your class, and you're trying to put as much big words in there to get across that line.
It's that, zhuzh it up so that, they're not going to get sued, but also that, you don't want to use those very words like very good. You want to say it's phenomenal. Things
and the editor really wants to put the sexy in there, and she's like, no, we don't have that yet.
Yeah, it's like it's not confirmed, but it's that thing of we need to run this. It's like, it'll be fine. Run it by legal.
Yeah, and legal is kind of fun because the actor who plays the lawyer,
it's John Harkins who plays Dabdick or something like that.
Yeah, and he plays a lawyer and other things.
Yeah.
But he basically is doing the legalese of let's cover our asses. It's like, well, as long as you call Paul Newman and say, this is what we're doing.
Can we get your side of the story?
And if he answers, if he doesn't answer, it's like, well, then we kind of
did our due diligence.
We did our due diligence.
And it's where the namesake of the movie comes from, because it's like, we were given this information from a trusted source. We reported that about the information, not saying that this is true. It's like that it's, the Department of Justice is investigating this person. And it's like, that's true. And they're investigating him for this murder of this union guy. That's also true.
Yeah.
By doing this and trying to get we have an absence of malice, that we're not purposely trying to ruin their life. We're just reporting what we know.
Yeah, what we know. Even though
it's like it's flimsy, but it's that they can't do. We can say what we want, and they can't do anything to us.
Right. And so they run this story that he's being investigated for this murder. We get a brief scene in a Catholic school bathroom of this woman seeing this report and being obviously very upset about it. We don't know who she is yet.
Yeah, we don't know why we're at a Catholic school. We know that she's an administrative there and smoking on,
smoking in the bathroom.
Is that a song?
That is a song.
Okay.
Look it up.
I won't.
But, it's swept aside.
Yeah. It's like, okay, it's like, we don't know who this is, but we will know. It is assumed that we will later, and we do.
But
Paul Newman shows up at the newspaper.
Yeah, and he's, in his Paul Newman, he's upset.
Well, and I had to look this up. I was like, could you just go up to the writers in the 1980s? You can't. There was security back then, but for the movie, he got through because he's Paul Newman.
But he basically says, like, you didn't call me. He's like, well, we did.
Yeah.
It's like once maybe.
It's like, I was out. You could have tried harder. As hard as she did to get the file, she could have tried harder to get his side of the story, but she didn't want it.
She didn't want to. This is the story. And he's upset saying, like, listen, this is going to cause problems for me. And they're like, would you want to go on record? And we start to get some MacGuffin set up of, no, I don't want to talk about this.
Yes. It's like, I shouldn't have to. It's like, I don't trust you, obviously. Mm-hmm. You've hurt me, a stranger, and now I got to deal with it.
Right. And then we flip over to the other side of, Agent Rosen talking with the DA. And the DA kind of being annoyed, like, well, do you have any evidence? And the FBI basically said, like, no, we know he's innocent, but he's the only way we can figure out who might have done this because he has ties to the mafia.
Yeah, because he is part of the actual family of this mafia, but he is clearly not part of the crime organization. But if we put pressure on him, he's the most likely to turn on them to keep his business going.
Yeah, basically, we're going to make this guy's life...
Yeah, we're going to squeeze him
until he sings.
Yeah.
And we do see that in a little bit because we do see that Paul Newman, has a warehouse where he's bringing in alcohol. And we start to see the beginnings of that pressure ramp up where the FBI shows up saying, hey, we saw this paper article. Do you want to talk to us? And he's like, no, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. He has no trust for the feds and no trust for the paper. He's like, no, I don't want to deal with any of you guys.
Yeah, get off. It's like, do you got a warrant?
Yeah.
Then,
get out of here.
And we get him going home, which I don't know if this is a Florida thing. It might be, but it's like, do we just park on the lawn?
I guess driveways and street parking are not a thing because,
you just park on the lawn.
Just park on the lawn.
But yeah, no, and we see the aforementioned woman.
And from the Catholic school, Teresa.
Saying, like, is this true? Oh, my gosh, And
I just want to point out, this is played by Melinda Dillon. I know her also from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. She's the mom of the little boy. But, she's like... She's his friend. She's an old friend. Yeah.
Well, it's like, he brings her in and says, hey, do you want me to make you some spaghetti?
Yeah, and I found this amusing that he mentioned that he was going to make spaghetti because this is like 1 year before Paul Newman's spaghetti sauce was part of the Paul Newman brand of products.
Yeah, so this is where he's testing out.
He's testing out all the sauces to make sure if it's right or not.
Yeah, so it's like your old Newman's own is being tested right here in the scene. But this is you get some MacGuffins here, because she says, well, I know you didn't do it because we were in Atlanta. And it's like, and you get what happened in Atlanta?
Yeah,
we don't know.
I love that this is a good way of doing exposition of these two characters' background, that they do a fake interview with each other, where it's like, yes, the FBI and the newspaper are going to ask you questions. It's like, well, I don't want to answer. It's like, and he kind of walks her through it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, you know me. Yes, we're friends. And then it's like, where were you on this date? And it's like, we were in Atlanta. It's like, no. You don't remember.
Yeah.
And that's where I do also like this, like, oh, he's hiding something.
Well, and because your mind wants to wander, because he is tied to the mafia, like, oh, is this a mafia thing? Is this, or is like, was it you guys were having an affair thing? You don't quite know, but your mind is allowed to kind of spin on what could have been.
You're trained by other movies in the past of, oh, no, he's clearly got to be involved somehow.
Well, it's like the second you have to hide something, it's like, ooh, it must be something nefarious.
Yeah.
But he wants to try to, get ahead of these things, and so he invites Sally Fields out for a lunch date.
Yeah.
And the paper's all too willing to let her go with some backup.
Yeah, and the backup being a photographer and a VW bug.
I know, it's like a bug chasing a wagon is the most 80s chase I've ever seen.
Yeah, and he
knows
it, so he gets her out on a boat.
Yeah.
And is like, we're going out of the ocean.
Yeah, we're going to international waters where we can gamble and I can throw you overboard.
Yeah. And And I love it's like now that we're in the middle of nowhere, let's eat, all that thing. But I was like, she's an investigative reporter, and I love her first question is, what's the name of the boat? And it's like, it's on the back of the boat that you saw, and it's on a life preserver right in front of your face. It is the Rum Runner. And it's like, well, why is it called that? It's like,
Lady,
you should know these. I mean, I know you're trying to get a recording of him saying it, but some of these things.
But he's already figured her out. He basically says, like, listen, I know you're recording me. And so she, comes clean, and they have a moment. It's like, it shows that he is very smart and he has his wherewithal.
Yeah, and this is where he serves her a very lovely lovely lunch. And this might actually have been made by Paul Newman because him and the director were competing gourmet chefs. And they were using Sally Field as a judge for their meals. And she was also happy at the beginning to do it. But eventually she was like, I just want to go to the local diner for some burgers and fries. I can't keep doing this anymore.
Like, guys, you're both awesome. Just stop.
It's just like, I can't have this much heavy food every day. I got to fit into my costumes.
But they did have like a good talk about like what is innocence, what is guilt. And, she gets back to the paper and basically just tosses the tape in the bottom of the purse, a fate with the buttons and the loose Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I really thought that was going to come back, but it really is just kind of a throwaway.
It was more to show that, that
this was a bust.
This was a bust of she tried to catch him, and as he was saying, it's like, am I having a moment with you, or am I on, record kind of thing,
We see that the pressure is continue to ratchet up on Paul Newman as the union comes and basically shuts down his operation, saying, well, we think you're tied to this, so we're not going to let your guys work.
Yeah, the union says the longshoremen and the Teamsters aren't going to be working for him and bringing in his alcohol, and that they're, in essence, on strike. And you go, oh, well, I know from strikes that there's usually like mediation over price, but this is just revenge.
Yeah.
This is like the downside of unions, of they can make your life miserable if they just don't like you.
Well, and it is an interesting, I guess, you could put it in the category of an oops, is Florida back then and is today is a right to work state. So the union would not be able to do things like this, but, for the sake of the story, we're going to,
say that this is how the pressure is being put more onto Michael from the
which is something like, he has, he's been wrongfully accused, and this is starting to, affect his life.
Yeah, and so he goes on another date with Sally Field.
Yeah, he meets up with her at the bar and says, "Hey, do you wanna, go?" And we have a, let's share drunken stories about our fathers.
Yeah, and this was a true story. Sally Field tells a story about how when she was dating as a teenager, her father was lying down on the lawn, and they would turn on the lights, and it's like, oh, there's my dad waiting for me to come home. This is an actual true story of her stepfather doing that to her when she was a teenager, of like, oh, she would come home from a day, and then the porch light would come on, and it's like, hi, Mr. Field, lovely evening, and then the guy would go home, kind of thing.
Oh, it's funny because it's true.
Fathers protecting their daughters.
Well, and it is interesting because after the date, they're being followed, and you think it's the FBI tailing him, and he gets out of his car, and he goes over to these people and says, I'll meet you at the ball game.
Yeah, like there's only one in all of them.
And when you see the ball game, you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure there's professionals out there, but this is and you realize this is a mafia meeting.
Yeah, this is the family ball game, and this is a good open space where they can't be overheard, and that this is the ball game where he meets with basically the head, his uncle.
Well, his uncle, and his uncle's basically filling him out saying, hey, we're seeing that there's some pressure on you. We just want to make sure. Are you good? Are you keeping your mouth shut?
It's like, yeah.
And he goes, yeah. It's like, and the uncle also knows it because like they got nothing, so they're picking on you.
Yeah, they're hoping that you're going to squeal on us, and they're going to put pressure on you. And it's like, don't worry about it. And it's like, yeah, no, I'll take care of it.
I'll take care of it. Kind of like a, lamenting, kind of like, ugh. Yeah. But meanwhile, at another park,
yes,
Sally Fields is meeting with
Teresa,
who is doing like the not naive, innocent person, but she wants to help out so bad and says like, hey, I know that Paul Newman is innocent.
And I have his alibi.
I have an alibi. And, this is one of those things where I think it does it well as, as a reporter. She's like, okay, but I need evidence. I can't just take your word for it. Where I think shows and movies today will kind of like, okay, we got it. Yes. She does like, you need to tell me. Yeah. I can't. It's like, you're a stranger. I don't know who you are. You need to tell me why? And she goes, well, because we were in Atlanta. Okay, yeah, but what were you doing in Atlanta? And that's where you get the, I guess, bombshell reveal of, well, he was helping me get an abortion.
Yeah, and I do love this movie specifically for their on-the-record, off-the-record mentality, because movies today, and it's one of those tropes where the person will talk to the reporter, it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you something, this is off the record, and then they just keep going.
Yeah.
No, you need to take a beat and have the reporter say, okay, this is off the record, because the reporter gets to control that, not the person giving the source.
Yeah, it's not like...
It's not a magical blanket up, no, you can't print that, I said it was off the record. It's like, I didn't say it was off the record.
Well, it's very much the old Hollywood. You have to tell me if you're cops. Like, that's not a real thing. But
so it's like saying, like, I don't want you to print this. It's like, I need to know the information and I need all the evidence, because otherwise you're just some unnamed woman who says on this day I was doing something.
Yeah, something, but I can't tell you.
Yeah,
what.
it's like, no. And so, yeah, as this idea that, okay, as a Catholic, she got an abortion. And that's devastating to her in her community, especially. She's going to lose her job. She's going to lose
her job. Her family's going to see it. Her friends.
And it's like, please don't do this. It's like, no, this is the part of the story. This will get him off. And
she does her thing. She goes, well, I can't make you a promise. And the editor, when he's doing it, goes, listen, that's a crux. I can't print it without having.
It's what makes me believe it.
Yeah.
And it's that empathetic thing. And I kind of cringed. Because she's like, it's the 1980s. No one cares that you got an abortion. I'm going, it's 2022, and we still care about it. This is unfortunate.
But I mean, and there is a heartbreaking scene of her waiting to get that paper, seeing that it's printed, and then running to take it off of her.
All the neighbors
are like, I need to control. It's like, it's done. That ink is in the water, and it is heartbreaking to see that this happens, and you get, a scene later of them saying, hey. She killed herself over this, and Sally Fields kind of being shell-shocked by it.
Yeah, it's like, I caused this person's death, because the editor says, like, yeah, she apparently was in therapy and had bouts of depression and was kind of, away from her family. And it's like, that's that idea of, yes, I had the story. I had all the information I wanted, but if I took another 5 minutes to dig,
maybe I would have
found reasons not to do this, or ways to, like, be a human being instead of a reporter.
And she does the probably ill-advised thing of going to go see Paul Newman about this, and he gives her 3 warnings, like, you need to get out of here.
You don't want to be here.
I'm not happy with you. And he roughs her up. I mean, in the spirit of these are good actors, he roughed her up to the point of she actually did hurt herself in these scenes because they were really...
Yeah, he kind of tweaked her neck somewhat, and she's like, yeah, it hurt, but I didn't want to stop the scene.
No, they were in it.
Yeah.
But, he roughs her up, and she eventually, in a moment of
empathy or weakness,
guilt, she's supposed to be saying it was Agent Rosen who basically leaked it to me. And the FBI is not going to give up on you.
Yeah, and then we get
the funeral scene.
The funeral scene, which I don't know my Catholicism that well, but I always thought that if you committed a mortal sin, and she's committed to having an abortion, committing suicide, you wouldn't be allowed in a Catholic cemetery. Now, this might not be a Catholic cemetery.
And they may not want to dive into that.
Yeah, they might not. It's like, that's not important. But,
no, but she's there hiding on the edges, kind of,
showing her respect, but also being at least decent enough to keep her distance. Because as we learned earlier in the movie, the FBI messed with Michael at his father's funeral, and he punched one of the agents, and that's why he has a record of assault on an officer.
Yeah. But we then switch to, I guess, the next phase of the movie is Michael has a plan, a job to do. We see him, buying an answering machine, buying tickets, cashing checks, posting mail.
Yeah, I mean, if this was remade today, the first hour of this movie would be like 10-30 minutes at most, and the rest would be this revenge plot.
Yeah, this would be, but it's done quickly. Yes. I mean, and you don't know what he's up to, but he's up to something.
He's up to something. He has a plan.
Sally Fields is still recovering from this. The editor comes over, says like, hey, I want to make you an editor. You've been doing good work. You're obviously having a problem with this. And you get a really good kind of line of like, listen, I can either report the truth or I can keep people safe. I can't do both.
Yeah, I can't, you can't harm people and report the truth kind of thing.
It's like, and my job as a news person is to report the truth, and that stinks because I know it's going to hurt people. And that is a good lesson for just the news industry as a whole.
Yeah,
Like,
take everything with a grain of salt, because they keep saying, like, oh, we can make these accusations. And it's like, do you print retractions? It's like, yeah, we do. It's like, are they a front page news? It's like, not usually. They're buried very deep. You know?
Yeah. But as she's dealing with this, you see that Mike goes to meet with the DA at a park saying, hey, I'm willing to play ball with you, but it's under my conditions, and I just, I want to meet with just you, and I'm going to give you information, and
I need you to
clear me,
give a public, clearance of my name.
And he's like, well, we never do that. He goes, yeah, but you're going to do it if you want me to play ball.
Yeah, and so it happens, and it's like, oh, now the task force has been thrown under the bus, the newspaper's been thrown on the bus.
Yeah, and that's what he's hoping.
Yeah.
But transversely, he's still trying to keep a relationship with Sally Fields, and he goes to that, and she finds out that,
Yeah, because she had a quick meeting with her FBI friend.
Yeah, and he says...
And he's saying, like, no, this is dirty. We're suspecting that he's paying off the DA. And I kind of joked on this meeting of, it's in her car, and she had, like, a bunch of flowers. Someone sat on those flowers because she put it on a seat.
Well, and you find out that the FBI has been doing illegal wiretaps, and she has some intel on this. But basically, she wants to know how much, is he involved? And he's like, am I talking to the reporter, or am I talking to someone who I'm romantically interested in? She can't.
Yeah, she's like, that's not fair. And it's like, that's the problem. It's that on the record, off the record, it's like, who am I talking to? Because if I just tell you, I can tell you that I'm not. But if I tell you, you're going to tell hundreds of thousands of people, which I don't want.
Yeah, and he's been setting this up. Yeah. He's been doing, like,
Yeah, there's no trust on either side.
There's no trust.
She thinks he's paid off, and he knows she's still a reporter looking for a story.
Well, and he knows he's up to something because he's been doing these fake phone calls. He's been messing with the DA. He's not, he's innocent, but he's not willing to, divulge anything because he knows that she's not, able to turn off her.
She is her job.
And they have this argument. And it comes back to this argument, like, what is the truth? Because it's like there's the truth in hurting people, and then he's like, yeah, but what is the truth?
Yeah,
is the truth is what you see? Is the truth is what I'm presenting?
Yeah, and then so the paper runs the idea that the DA is under investigation.
Well, it's like there's a headline that that the DA is taking these bribes. Because that's what the FBI is like. Oh, well, look, we have all this evidence, and it's coming to this head, and we get the best intro of we get Wilford Brimley. Yes, no, Wilford Brimley is the assistant DA to the USJ. He's like one of the head honchos, and he's been brought in to basically suss this out. He's like, okay, we've got a DA who's accused of bribery. We've got this FBI agent. We've got this
the newspaper reporting on these things, and we've got a
potential
informant or suspect who's in the middle of all this. And he's gonna lay down the law of like, we're going to figure this out in this room right now.
Yeah, he's like, I've got subpoenas. He's like, I'm watching everyone squirm.
Yeah. It's like this is coming to a head right now.
Well, and he basically calls out the FBI. He's like, okay, what it's like, what do you have? It's like, well, he's been bribing. The DA goes, okay,
make your case,
and he does, and it falls apart right in front of everyone. He's like, well, so he's like, why were you giving money? Well, I think it's a good cause. Well, isn't it tied to the DA? Yeah, so it's like proof that I bribed him.
And you can see in Paul Newman's face that he loves that his plan is coming together.
Yeah, because he knows that you can't prove the intent. You can prove that he did it, but there was nothing illegal.
Yeah, there was no smoking gun, no picture of him physically handing money to the DA.
And Wilford Brimley basically knows this. He goes, okay, you can go. The reporter, you basically been had, but you didn't do anything illegal. You can leave. And then he turns to the FBI agent and the DA said, like, you're both going to be resigning because you both were dumb in how you handled this.
Yeah, it's like, the DA, you have to resign because this is coming after you and you're going to lose any re-election whatsoever and we're not going to protect you. And then the FBI is like, you're going to resign because you are under me.
He's like, you basically broke the law. We're going to let you just leave without filing charges.
Yeah.
And, Sally Fields has to go back to the newspaper, and you get that kind of old scene where everyone knows what happened. They give her the side eye, and the paper is saying, like, well, we're going to need we'll cover your ass, but we're going to need a statement.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like, you guys were involved, weren't you? It's like, yeah, you can say that. It's like, that's true.
It's true. We were,
but
it takes out all the heart.
Well, it's like, it's not true, but it's accurate, and that's kind of been their problem this whole time. And I do love there was a scene with them, with Paul Newman and Sally Field at the elevator, which I think was the original end of this movie, or the original end of these two characters.
Yeah.
Of saying, did you set me up, kind of thing. And it's like, no, I knew a journalist was going to do it.
Yeah, someone was going to take that bait.
Yeah,
it just so happened to be you.
Yeah.
It wasn't personal. It was like, well, this is what I knew.
But then,
but we do get an extra scene.
Yeah, because the doc scene, I don't know if it's the entire doc scene or just a line, but test audiences weren't thrilled with the fact that there was no romantic resolution between these two characters, which I personally I don't think there should have been, but to give some kind of hint that they could come back together sometime in the future.
Yeah.
They said, they added the line of, will I ever see you again, or kind of thing. And it's like
maybe
possible.
Maybe. But yeah, you literally get Paul Newman sailing off into the sunset.
Yeah, and I don't. It's a fun Easter egg that wasn't intentional, but he's like, everyone's heading south and west these days. I think I'll head north and east, and which he, if you know that area, he actually really is heading north and east. But his next movie, the Verdict, I think, takes place in Boston. So he literally goes
to the next movie, which is up north.
He's sailing to the next movie. Yeah.
But no, this is a fun film. It's definitely the reverse of another film at the time, All the President's Men, which is about the
powers of the Fourth Estate.
Well, it's the Watergate thing of showing like, no, this is what investigative journalism can do for good.
Yeah, where that was like, well, we have Deep Throat as a source, but we're going to need at least 3 other people to be named sources before they do their due diligence. Where this is like, no, we got just enough information to make the story, and Paul Newman took this job, one, he liked the story, but he was not a fan of newspapers or journalism at the time because they were constantly writing gossip about him as an actor. And the press pool for this film was always contentious because he would say, okay, next question. Oh, I'm from this paper. Yeah, I don't like your paper. Go ahead. And so that they would be arguing, and Sally Field would join him in other arguments. And it's like, yeah, the newspapers didn't like that they were being attacked.
Well, it's like, I think it's good to definitely keep journalism intact because it is a thing like a good journalist versus like the paparazzi and bad journalism, which we're definitely getting the days of people who just post online as news sources, which are not.
Yeah, it's like where a tweet is all that's needed. And it's like, that's not good enough.
That's not good enough. This also reminds me of a 1994 movie, The Paper, with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Where it's like not a tabloid paper, but somewhere along those lines. Like, you're not a New York Times, you're more of a New York Post, but basically the same thing of like, hey, we're presented with an opportunity. Do we take the truth or do we take the sensationalism? And I was like, I kind of have a soft spot for these movies. They're like, ooh, yeah, I want to see the behind the scenes of like, breaking news and how it can be done right.
How that sausage is made. And we've seen that, that nostalgia, because I think like Aaron Sorkin did The Newsroom for the same reason of things aren't what they used to be, and we're suffering from it.
Yeah, and how can you show what good journalism is versus what bad journalism is?
And what drives the news and who's going to get hurt, who's going to be a crybaby about it. So,
Baby Drivers?
Yeah, you saw what I was doing there. Our next movie is Baby Driver.
Yeah, a very fun action comedy adventure.
Yeah, action, heist, or gang, criminals doing what criminals do.
But best. But Edgar Wright, who happens to be one of our favorite directors, this is a very fun film.
So I highly suggest watching it before next week, and hopefully you watched Absence of Malice.
Yeah, it's a fun, look back.
Yeah, I'm glad I have it. We have an email now.
We do have an email at abcdvdpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to ask us questions, write in about next time. We'll try to answer it.
Tell us what we got wrong.
Tell us what we got right.
We do get those things wrong, and
we
don't usually correct ourselves, but
Yeah, but if you want to write in, there we have one. Yeah. So next time, Baby Driver, and welcome to season 2.
All right, thanks.
Bye. Keep it in your back pocket for when we're not funny.
We're never funny.